weekend edition of the Star Good Morning Show. Thank God it's Friday, the official start of the weekend. I am Leonora Jawara, and African proverb for today comes from Ethiopia. It says, your neighbor knows you are alive, but only you know how you are living. Top stories we shall be looking in the program today, as the government of Sierra Leone, with support from international donors, has held President Julius Maada Bio promised to build a peace cohesion that will take us on board on all facets of society. For the first time, 10 juveniles from the remand center has been granted presidential pardon, according to Prison Watch Sierra Leone. The Ministry of Tourism and Cultural Affairs and the National Tourist Board has held a reception in honor of the visiting German journalist to Sierra Leone, with the aim of promoting Sierra Leone at the Country Lodge Hotel in Freetown. Well, with me in the studio this morning is the Deputy Public Relations Officer, Anti-Corruption Commission, Success Kamara. He'll be talking to me on the recovery efforts by the ACC and expedition of indicted cases, including the fight against corruption generally. Good morning, Success, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Leonora, and it's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Also with me is the Executive Director of Ambo Talk International, John Coker. He will be telling me on some of their program activities, especially those bordering on community dispute resolutions across the country. Good morning, John, and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. I shall be back with you shortly. Well, remember, the Star Good Morning Show is sponsored by Rocal Commercial Bank. Let's take a message from our sponsors.
SimCorp allow old and young to make deposits and withdraw cash from their account at any time and anywhere. With Rocal Commercial Bank SimCorp, you can send and receive money at any place and any time. Rocal Commercial Bank don't make life better for we all.
9:05 is the time from our studio clock, and now let's begin with our first news item for today. As the government of Sierra Leone, with support from national and international stakeholders, commenced the 3-day National Peace and Cohesion Conference at the Bintumani Conference Hall, Aberdeen in Freetown, President Julius Maada Bio promised to build a peace commission that will take on board all facets of society. There is more in this report.
Sierra Leone's National Peace and Cohesion Conference, dubbed by President Bio as Bintumani 3, has kicked off on the 23rd of May 2019 with speeches by representatives of various facets of society. But it is the President's keynote statement marking the opening of the conference that drew much interest in terms of setting the agenda and the tone of proceedings for the next 3 days. The President spoke of a Sierra Leone that is desperately in need of consolidating democratic practices and enhancing national cohesion, whilst pushing hard for support for the establishment of a National Peace and Cohesion Commission. This is what he said.
So my government is eager for the final communique from this event, and we expedite its consideration by Cabinet and then the Sierra Leone Parliament. Sierra Leone desires a permanent and effective peace infrastructure on which the full spectrum of Sierra Leonean voices is represented. This is why we are here today. Let us hold ourselves accountable as a nation, how we protect and provide access to services for the vulnerable. Let us protect women from sexual violence, gendered violence, and gender discriminatory practices and attitudes. Let us protect persons with disability, children, youth, and
Making his statement, the Chief Minister, Professor David Francis, who is also chairman of the event, said President Bio organized the Bintumani 3 so as to consolidate democracy for peace and national cohesion. He noted that it is a must for every Sierra Leonean, including political parties and groups, to support peace and national cohesion in the country. The main opposition, All People's Congress Party, kept to their words of boycotting the Bintumani III conference. But a strong member of the party, Honorable Alpha Khan, joined other stakeholders in the conference. In an exclusive interview, he told Star Television his reasons for attending the conference despite his party's boycotts.
I have always wanted a peace conference. I have always been advocating for dialogue. What we need is integration. What we need is bridge building. What we need is cohesion. And so I have always stood by that. And that is a policy that I cannot change. It's my DNA. I like cooperation. I like integration. I like dialogue. That is why I am here. I have decided to come long before the party decided they were not going to come. I went to the party office on, I forgot the day now, to tell them that I believe we should go, because this is about the nation. It is not about politics. It is not about our own petty interests.
Is he betraying his party? This was his response.
I did not come here to betray party. I didn't come here as a party member. I came here as Alpha Kanu, ambassador at large. I was invited as a person, and I'm invited to be a chair lead, a moderator in one of tomorrow's sessions. So I have to accept, because it is a duty to Sierra Leone. I did not come to represent the APC. The APC didn't come, so I didn't come as APC. I came as Alpha Kanu of Port Loko, and I came to represent my people and myself.
Honorable Alpha Khan refuted rumors that he was chased out of his party office during their stakeholders meeting prior to the Bintumani III conference.
That is a rumor. There is nobody with the kind of temerity, with the kind of audacity, with the courage to even look at me in the face and say, Alpha Khan, you can't come into the APC. I didn't join the APC yesterday. I was an activist of the APC from age 10 in 1962. And I've been like that 57 years. I've been longer in the APC than some of them have lived in the world. So nobody can tell me that you can leave the APC. Where will I go now at this 11th hour? Nobody. Nobody chased me. I left because I knew that when they came down, they are going to read a statement that they had decided upstairs, for which I was not party. And I went there to tell them, let us look at this thing from the national point of view. Let's take it away from the myopic view of our political party. Let's look at the issue.
They would not attend. Also, he visited their position and decided to attend the conference. The parliamentary leader of the party, the Honorable Kande Kole Yumkela, tells Star Television why they came about that decision.
My party had a conference call where they presented our position paper. They also stated that they got invitation cards, but they are not sure whether they were invited as participants. But I think that has been misconstrued, that they said the party will not participate. The fact is, I'm here with my chairman and leader. We had a good meeting last night, looking at the whole conference with the team that we had set up to deal with the position paper. We debated it, we discussed it, we had some youth representatives. The youth did not want us to participate. That is fact, because they have issues that they see in the country they are not pleased about. Some of what happened in Tonko Limba and other places, unemployment and so on. We'd had a good discussion. We believe that as part of constructive engagement, we should be here. We should not only be here, we should present a formal paper.
Leonora Jawara, Star Television, Freetown. This is the Star Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
Fambo Talk International. What is Fambo Talk? Give us an overview of your organization.
Oh, thank you very much. Fambo Talk is Creole for family discussion. Okay. And more or less it's a community-owned and led reconciliation program that leads to development. If you allow me, I'll just talk a little bit about what we've done so far. Since the end of the war, we worked at community level in over 250 sections in about 6 districts, facilitating dialogue and reconciliation at the village, section and chiefdom level in these 6 districts. That's Kailan, Kono, Kwenadugu, Bombali, Pujon, and Moyamba. Then the Ebola broke out. We had to reorganize ourselves, but we rediscovered that the value Fambutok has is the community mobilization. We try to work with communities also to play their own part as part of our contribution to the end of the Ebola. After the Ebola, we realized we made a couple of mistakes after the war. The community recovery efforts were mostly led by NGOs and other parastatals. The people were not in charge of waiting for outside support from the government. And through this people's planning process, we've seen communities come together to even start the construction of a bridge in Kwenadugu. We've seen communities come together to build a health post, to work on market structures. So, and women also come together to do their own women empowerment initiatives. But by and large, the focus of Fambutok is bringing people together, reconciling people to the same page, so that they'll be able to thrive and sort of address their own challenges.
Okay, so you talk about people coming together, and there are so many times we've got dispute resolutions, people playing parties and politics, people not forgiving each other, and now we're talking about building
the elections last year. We worked with UNDP, the Office of Vice President, and other CSOs, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, to organize chiefdom there. Bombali, Kwenadugu. As I'm speaking to you now, a team is heading to Cambia, or a team is in Cambia now, facilitating a district dialogue. And tomorrow we'll be in Tonko Liba chiefdom. 3 days ago, we were in Pujon, facilitating a district dialogue. And on Sunday, we'll be again in one of the chiefdoms in Pujon. Yesterday, the team in Kailang, we are also in Daru. Hopefully tomorrow they will be in Kisiteng, that's in Kwendu. So more or less our work is to create the atmosphere, sort of the space, conducive space for people to come out and to talk about their grievances, to talk about their differences, and to find a way forward.
What are some of these issues and grievances people tell you about?
I was expecting that question. That's a good one. Basically, I will tell you about, 70 to 80% of these cases has to do with politicians. Mostly the dispute between members of parliament and paramount chiefs, members of parliament not seeing eye to eye with their councillors, and in some cases, party politics. Like in some of these chiefdoms, it was a little serious because some of the cases were even taken to the police station for the redress. However, we believe as a nation, we are all Sierra Leoneans. Elections are over. Now we're talking about development. So if we should talk about development as a nation, as a community, as a district, we should work together and put aside our differences. Having said that, that does not mean we put everything under the carpet. Let's talk. Let's find ways to accommodate each other. And for us, we tried our best to conduct the dialogue in a way that everyone feels that he or she is a winner. I remember in Boedu, where we have at some point almost like 2 MPs trying to work with the people, the former MP and the present MP. We worked with the community, the people from Kailang district. We facilitated their movement to come to Freetown to engage party executives, to engage the individuals, to engage the district stakeholders, and then they went back to the chiefdom. So they were able to bridge that gap. What we do is we identify potential people, leaders within communities, mostly women, who play this to ensure that it's not just when Fambutok is there, but even without Fambutok, they are able to continue their dialogue. So more or less what we do is we use Sierra Leonean ideas to solve Sierra Leonean problems.
Okay. Continue to stay with me, John. I'll come back to you shortly. Let me bring in Success Say Kamara. He's the Assistant Public Relations Officer of the Anti-Corruption Commission. Good morning again, Success.
Good morning.
Before we go further, we've seen the ACC has been making tremendous efforts in the fight against corruption. Would you say Sierra Leone is making good strides against corruption as of now?
Yes, I will. I would say so with all confidence, not just because I want to say so, but because of the fact that it's been very much, but in being informed by the Anti-Corruption Act, number 12 of 2008, specifically Section 7, which speak about the functions of the Commission, says the Commission will have to take tangible efforts, for the prevention, eradication, suppression of corruption and all corrupt practices across ministry, departments, and agencies. So that is exactly what we've been doing, using the preventive approach, using, where necessary we cover, as I rightly said, as per mandate in Section 48, and then where there's a clear evidence and then it's been informed by the work of the ACC that there should be an indictment, then of course there have been an indictment and there will be an indictment. But mixed feelings around the work of the ACC. Well, what I will say is that no matter what you do, no matter what effort you make, there will always be people who will look at it from another lens. But that shouldn't be something to discourage you. I think it is something that we at the ACC always take into good faith and ensure that we inform what we do and be able to do it in a more effective and proper way so that we can bring real answers to the people of Sierra Leone in real time. So over time, as you always expect with every effort of anti-graft agencies, not only in Sierra Leone but across Africa, people always have their own different lenses by the way they look at what efforts, whatever specific agency is making. Like recently, most times around the issues of corruption, you hear people coming up with issues like, oh, it's a witch hunt, oh, some people want to settle a score. But what we want to tell the people of Sierra Leone, that corruption being one of the disease or one of the greatest disease, not only in Sierra Leone but across Africa, that continue to hamper our development, is something that is so crucial that even in instances of investigating people who've been alleged a corruption, the work of the commission is by no way a witch hunt, because it is an independent effort, and we've seen steps. I can remember being across a lot of social fora and even across community radios in this country, and sometimes text messages come in and people are saying, oh, A, B, and C is a witch hunt. And we say, no, it is not. Because we've seen the Anti-Corruption Commission being much more robust in recent times, not only with people who served before, but even people in this present regime. We've seen how ACC was able to take a swift action in recovering 980,657 million loans from the Sierra Leone Maritime Administration.
So give us updates on your recovery efforts. What's the latest so far?
But there's been a lot of settlement agreements. Mark you, the Anti-Corruption Commission, when the People's Commissioner came in some 8-9 months ago, and I'll also use this opportunity again on this particular channel to be able to tell the people, because I have been a good propounder of the recoining of the commission as the People's Commission, and as well the commissioner as the People's Commissioner. Section 5.2 of the Anti-Corruption Act number 12 of 2 is very clear that in the efforts of the Anti-Corruption Commission, it is both accountable to the people of Sierra Leone, and if it is so, then the commission is the People's Commissioner and the commissioner the People's Commissioner. But that said, settlement agreement, if we can jog our memory as a nation, we've been in this country over time. Even before this time, 5-6 or more years ago, we had the famous Nassit Ferry issue, which was an out-of-court settlement. So when the People's Commissioner came in some 8-9 months ago, looking at the work of the commission and having reviewed all what he met on his table, he had one thing he was keen about. He said, what do we do? The commission being the People's Commission, what do we do that in everything that we do that the people of Sierra Leone win always? And then he decided, to strengthen the commission's work in recovering, stolen funds for government, on behalf of the people of Sierra Leone as our mandate in Section 48. And then we see series of settlement agreements. Most times people are brought to the commission for misappropriation of public funds, and then they agree or they admit to committing those, and then they enter into settlement agreement to the commission, and then at the end of the day they have to pay that money. Why? Over time we've seen that sometimes, even though when the commission must have spent quite a lot of time, energy, and resources in certain cases. When we go to court, we lose those cases. This is not in any way trying to say we are not doing our best at the commission. But one thing we always emphasize to the people of Sierra Leone is that once the ACC investigates a particular case of corruption and then there is an indictment and then sent to court, that particular matter is no longer at the mercy or at the purview of the ACC, but a competent court of jurisdiction. So we've seen over time, even in instances where we send cases to court, spend a lot of money, we don't win those cases. And most times, again, most of our cases take quite a very long time in court, and the court have asked the defenses over time. Mark you, anti-corruption issues are not the only issues before the court. There are issues relating to land, there are issues relating to other criminal matters, businesses, and what have you. So that is a very reason why over time as well, we've seen, the judiciary swiftly moving to establish a special division on corruption, which we think will be able to expedite our work. But for recovery efforts, based on the settlement agreement we'll be entering into, one with T&S Company, that is the brother of the former president of Sierra Leone, T&S, that is Thomas Koroma. He entered into a settlement agreement to pay 127,000 United States dollars. He's paying that money. We've seen recoveries from the Nasi Sisimi project, that's the Nasi Sisimi Medical Foundation. We've seen recently the Haja Kala Kamara, a settlement agreement, and as well the TPMS, Ageba. So with all these recoveries, and then recently, when Dr. Serafin Abendu was at SLMA, Sierra Leone Maritime Administration, and Dr. Dinky Mara and Wamayama Bongo Sisi and Monsoya, misappropriating funds of 980 million, all these monies have been recovered. So as we speak, with particular reference to our recovery, effort, we've been able to recover close to 30 billion euros. That is way over $1 million. Sections of that money, have been, on 28th of December in 2018, what was about 7.5 billion at that time was handed over to the presidency for onward transfer to the consolidated fund. So that is where we are as of now relating to recoveries, and we continue to make more efforts going forward. And strongly in the next couple of years, I'm pretty sure we'll be hitting $2 million, dollars or more, because we still continue to make so much effort, ensuring that we bring the people of Sierra Leone first and ensure we win on their behalf always.
Okay, Success Kamara, Assistant Deputy Public Relations Officer of the ACC. Let me bring in again John Quokka, Executive Director, Fambul Talk International. Now, John, issues on election violence has always been hindrance towards promoting social and peaceful cohesion in our country. How do we solve such problems?
You see, I think that's the rationale behind the establishment of the proposed independent peace commission, to see how that can be addressed once and for all. However, for us as Fambul Talk, we believe we will continue to engage the people, because most of the politicians, they were not only politicians, but the stakeholders within this violence. They most times use the ordinary people to perpetrate their violence and to sort of to hash out their plans. So what we do is we encourage people come together. Look, whatever happens, we are one family. Whatever happens, we still live in the same community. Whatever happens, most of these people who come to use us will leave. And when we stay behind, our children, our mothers, our fathers, we all live in the same community. How do we ensure we address issues, avoid the violence, ask the right questions? So more or less what we are doing is we're trying to empower the people to think a little independent. For example, just after the war, we see a lot of dependency on aid. Most communities, everything they want, everything. So what we do is we go to community and say, we don't have money. What we are here to do is to work with you, because we believe the answers are here. Local solution to local problems. And that's what we are preaching. So once the people start to think independently, not like in the past, they'll tell you, we need a health post. We need the NGOs to come and build a health post for us. We'll say, okay, yes, that's fine. They will come. But in the meantime, what can you do for yourselves? You have the land. You have the bricks. You have sticks. Let's plant for 2 seasons. If it's groundnut or rice or something, we'll sell the proceeds to buy what is not available within the community. Once they go through that process, they get the structure. We will negotiate with the councils to get a service provider. I mean, like the CHO to come there maybe 2-3 days a week. So more or less, we are trying to say you can do this. Don't depend on outside aid. You have the resources here. You have the answers here. When donors come, they meet you halfway. They have more respect for you. You know, so more or less, we are encouraging people to say, look, sit together, look at your community. A, identify the problems. B, look around, look for the solutions. 3, work as a team to sustain whatever solution you come up with. So more or less, we just believe that if there is sustainable peace at the community level, violence during elections will be minimized, because the people will not entertain violent language. The people will not entertain any outsider to come and divide them because of elections. So more or less, we are preaching, talking to the people, we are one family. What we knew when we were growing up as a Sierra Leonean in my small village, what I know is it takes a village to raise a child. When I was growing up, you do something wrong, your mother will not only cane you. If someone else saw you doing something, they will hold you, maybe give you a spank. And then when you go and tell your mother or your parent, they will hold you again, come to the person and give you another spank. That shows you it's the community that brings you up. We've lost all those values. How can we go back to our values as a community, as a nation, as Sierra Leone we used to know, the hospitable Sierra Leone? You go to a village, people are happy to move out of their homes to accommodate you. These days, it's not happening. They will show you the guest house, if even it's 10 or more miles away. But what we know before, in the, I mean, like 10 or more, or say 20 years ago, it takes everyone. If you have a guest, the community will come together to make sure the guest is comfortable. So what we are saying is, elections, I mean, violence during elections cannot be addressed at that time. Let's start to address, let's lay the foundation now, so people get to know about all of these things before then.
After elections, politics still come into play in promoting peaceful cohesion. You still do have people playing partisan politics, which affects their relationship. You are in party A, party B, you don't relate. Whatever you do, party politics comes in. How do we bridge that gap?
Well, you see, that is a difficult one to bridge, because for them it's their living. That is like their job. I mean, they thrive on the division. For most people, you know, they thrive when there is confusion. So what we are saying, let us focus on what the people want to do, how they want to go about it. So when the outsiders, could be politicians, could be just disgruntled businessmen or whoever, when they come to cause confusion, to mislead you, you are able to say, no, we are together. Tell us why you are here. Ask the right questions. Engage. So this is what we are saying. You see, the party politics will always exist, because it's like a music and cheer. 5 years, you are there, the others go to the back, they are working very hard to come to unseat you. Maybe 5-10 years, they work very hard. So more or less, that's their business. But what we are saying is, be a professional. Be a professional politician. Don't mislead the people. And when it comes to your politics, play your politics in parliament. Play your politics outside. But for goodness sake, work with the people. Adhere to the people's needs. See how you can accompany the people to accomplish their needs, and don't try to divide us. So more or less, we hope whatever institution that comes up at the national level to address post-election and sustainable peace, we will be there to complement their efforts. We are there. We don't intend to go. We are there. That is why we are not only going there as staff, we work with thousands of volunteers who lead the discussion within their communities, who facilitate the space. But we make sure we work with people who are not active politicians.
Okay. So you've been working with communities, trying to reconcile communities. So far, what has been their response? How are they taking your dialogue, your message that you take to them?
I mean, that's the greatest blessing, I think, as Fambu Talk we have. What we have nurtured over these years is credibility. When we go to communities, if even the people have not sat together for months, once they say Fambu Talk is here, they trust the space. They trust us. They know we are not politicians. They know we are not political. And they know we are there not to tell them what to do, but to listen to them and guide them. Our role is to create a space, make sure there is trust and confidence to dialogue. And once that is done, we take a back role. And if there, from time to time, we'll step in, but it's more or less facilitating the process. And, the people trust us, more or less. That's the bottom line. We've worked over the last 12 or more years. People know Fambul Tok is here, and Fambul Tok will continue to stay, because we are not there to tell them what to do. And that trust is what we don't want to misuse and what we don't want to betray. We want to ensure we sustain the trust by continuing to engage them, to accompany them, not to support them, but to accompany them, because we believe that we should work towards local solution for local problems.
Okay, thank you so much, John. Continue to stay with me. Quickly, before we go for another insert, let me quickly bring in success. Indictment of cases. What's the latest update so far?
Well, the latest is the one that centers on the alleged, misappropriation of public funds as captured by the Audit and Technical Report. Mark you, I think the beginning in April, the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development came up with a report, of alleged corruptions across government parastatals, including SALCAB, of course, ETSA, EGTC, of course, NP, and the rest of it. So the commission on 16th April held a press conference at the Cathedral, building at 3 Gloucester State Office, informing journalists and, on behalf of the people of Sierra Leone that it has taken keen interest, with what has been captured in the Audit and Technical Report, when the People's Commissioner was strong by saying that if the Commission turned its back, in all what has been captured in the Audit and Technical Report, then the Commission, will not even have the leeway to exist in the first place. And he did refer to those alleged corruption as a stinking one. And he said there were two things the Commission was going to do. It's either we are going to confirm what has been captured in the alleged corruption that has been captured in the Audit and Technical Report, or we dismiss that, but that we are going to probe and look further, on issues of corruption. And then we've seen the House of Parliament, early in May, a particular letter signed by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Parliament, Mr. Singapore Thomas, saying that they've cleared off the Anti-Corruption Commission to look deeply into what the alleged corruption is being captured. So the commission started looking into those alleged corruption, and they've seen the indictment recently, of 3 persons: Mr. Paul Sandi Mohammed, who was former permanent secretary of the Ministry of Information and Communication, and Mr. Paul Sandi, and of course Mohammed Shaif, who was managing director of Sierra Leone Cable Limited, SALCAB, and then Idris Ayila, who was member of the board, for alleged misappropriation of $300,000 United States dollars. According to the particulars of the offense, during the course of the investigations, what ACC actually found out was that these 3 persons, misappropriated these monies, and then the investigations also show that they took this money out of the SALCAB account and then awarded it to Base Construction, which is owned by the former permanent secretary, Mr. Posandi himself. And then they said the money was particularly taken and was requested by the former president of the Republic of Sierra Leone, President Ernest Bai Koroma. But the ACC investigations couldn't ascertain whether the money was given to President Koroma. But what is clear is that $300,000 United States dollars, is alleged to have been misappropriated from the SALCAB account, and these persons are making their first appearance in the High Court holding in Freetown today, Friday, 24th May 2019. So that's the latest coming from the Commission.
All right, continue to stay with me, Success Kamara. Let's take another insert. Now, for the first time, 10 juveniles from the Remand Center has been granted presidential pardon, according to Prison Watch. Let's have more in this.
Been granted presidential pardon. The 10 juveniles were granted presidential pardon following numerous appeals made to the government by Prison Watch Sierra Leone, one of the vibrant civil society organizations in the country. Speaking at a press conference organized at the headquarters of Prison Watch Sierra Leone in Freetown, John Lansana Coker appreciates the humanitarian gesture extended to the 10 children that were in conflict with the law, and on behalf of his organization expressed gratitude to President Julius Maada Bio, Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, the Office of Director of Public Prosecution for positively responding to their humanitarian appeal.
We want to say thank you to the government of Sierra Leone, most especially the president and his team, for hearing the voice of President Ward at this time around, because in our privileged discussion with the Director of Public Prosecution, he was able to bring up the names of these boys and they were granted amnesty. For the office of the DPP, we want to say thank you, and the office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, because they had been the pillar behind this and they have succeeded to grant our boys presidential pardon, which have never happened in this country. Well, for the past government, we have been calling on them, we have been crying over this issue, but no action has been taken. But for this year, with the intervention of the DPP, the new DPP, he has been able to forward the case of these guys and they have been granted pardon.
Saliu Jallo, in his remarks, noted that the Pademba Road Correctional Center was constructed for 324 inmates, but over the years, the number drastically increased to over 2,000 inmates, disclosing that there are currently 123 children at detention center. Among them are 4 girls, according to their report.
This is a very great step undertaken by the government of Sierra Leone, especially the president, and that we're able to achieve this through the honest work of the current Director of Public Prosecution, who listened to our call and listened to our suggestion and took it to the Amnesty Committee and ensure that 10 children were released. For us, we think this is something we must say thank you to him, and we'll continue to encourage him to continue to work in for humanity. Sierra Leone is one organization that works with persons in conflict with law, which includes those in police cells, those in correctional centers, juvenile homes, and to some extent local court detention facilities across the country. We basically monitor, we investigate, we document and report incidents of human rights violation to authorities according to the government of Sierra Leone. Is that we are happy that for the first time children have been released through the humble efforts of the Director of Public Prosecution, Barrister Ismail Gakwi. We want to say thank you to government also for honoring that one, and I want to continue to say that there are a lot of people who continue to be held behind bars, especially those for minor offences. We think that much more steps must be taken to expedite their matters. When Pademba Road alone was constructed for 324 inmates, as I speak to it's over 2,000 inmates at Pademba Road. You look at those juvenile homes, as at yesterday, there are 123 children in the juvenile homes, out of which 4 of them were girls. So I can't give you specifically, but you go right around the country, in every detention facility, there is overcrowding. Bo was constructed for 80. It has over 250 inmates as I speak to you. Same as Kenema, constructed for 75. It has about 250. So the numbers keep growing. They are not coming down at all. So we want to encourage, we want to appeal to government to look into those matters of persons who continue to be held behind bars for a long time, so that their matters can be expedited and justice can be reached out to them.
The Bo Correctional Center was constructed for 40 inmates, but now have about 250 inmates. Kenema Correctional Center was constructed for 75 inmates, but the number have increased to 200 inmates. Mr. Jallo called on the government for speedy trials, as justice delay is justice denied. For Star News, Sadomba Maturi reporting.
9:48 is the time from our studio clock. Thank you so very much, Sir Dumba Machuri, for putting that report together. And you're still watching us live here on Channel 21. Let me come back to John Coker. Now, reconciling communities in Sierra Leone, how challenging has that been for Fambutok?
It was challenging when we started, really challenging, and I remember, I mean, my background is more into human rights, but I had to take off my human rights hat and focus more as a peace builder to ensure that we don't misunderstand our work. I think what makes it easy is the trust that we've built over the years. When we started, people will ask questions, why do you want to bring us together? We are happy like this. Happy in a sense, each one goes his or her own different way. But there will be no development because they still live with their grudges, etc. So more or less, I think it's the approach again that we use. The approach we use is we don't go in with a lens to fix the problem. We go in with a lens to say the solution is here. Let's work together. Let's identify the solution because you have the solution to your problems. Because we go again with respect. We don't say you are right, you are wrong. So more or less, it's the approach. Working with traditional leaders, working with religious leaders, working with women, working with youths. I remember about 10 years ago, our initial approach, was to have a reconciliation committee at the sectional level. But the composition was heavily male-dominated. Because if you ask for religious leaders, for the Christian and Muslim, most times it's 2 men. The traditional leader, most times is a man. Youth leader, most times is a man. You only have 1 woman leader. So the women leader becomes, the lone voice. So we were able to negotiate again to say, okay, let's have 5 women and 5 men. So that helped greatly. Then we had a team from the US that did some evaluation a couple of years back who said, part of the challenge people face is to work to meet the reconciliation committee members. It's like a disincentive for them to work to go complain to the next village or 4 or 5 miles. So they asked us to see if we could train people within each village, and I think that has helped greatly. So in all the villages we work, we train a male and a female to act as mediators. And now we've also worked towards a community welfare and mediation committee at the sectional level that moves from village to village. For example, in some villages, the problems are with their chiefs. So if you have a problem with your chief, who do you complain to? It's a small community. So you live with that grudge. But when the community welfare and reconciliation committee team moves from village to village, when they come to your village, there is space and opportunity for you to complain or to explain to one of the members about what is happening in your village. And then the committee members will politely engage the chief to sort of find ways to bridge that divide and ensure there is cohesion or some sort of reconciliation at the village level without causing any problem to the person who brought the complaint to the committee. So more or less, we are trying as much as possible to really make sure we don't go with outsiders to communities. We work with people who live in the villages, people who live at the sectional level, people who are chiefdom stakeholders. These are the people we work with, these are the people we train, and they live there. Even for those who go in like vacation or holiday or for a few months, we encourage the community, don't nominate them because they will leave. Identify people who stay here. We will train them, we will accompany them because we have our own training manual and we conduct trainings regularly for members to ensure that they don't judge. They are not there to judge. They are there to facilitate a dialogue among disputing parties and ensure that there is amicable resolution of most of these issues. Okay, so what they are not able to resolve, we encourage them to refer to the police.
So quickly, you've been working with the UNDP in promoting social and peaceful cohesion. How can you describe your role so far, your efforts being played?
The present project is with UNDP, but we've been working with our traditional partner, Catalyst for Peace, who are based in the US. Okay. So I just want to make that clarification. All right. So come again?
How can you describe your efforts so far?
It's hard for me to describe our efforts, but all I can say from the feedback we get, the work we do is greatly appreciated. I will say, not by everyone, but by most people, and particularly people who know what's happening at the community, at sectional level, at the district level, people who value what it means to travel, go to a village, sit with the people, and encourage them to resolve their dispute. There are a few tensions here and there, mostly among civil society, but we are very grateful to our partners, to our donors. We are grateful to the paramount chiefs. We are grateful to our colleagues CSOs at the district level who are teaming up with us to ensure we have sustainable peace in Sierra Leone.
All right, so what's your closing quotes as I round up with you?
My closing courtesy is, I will say, a message to Sierra Leoneans. As Sierra Leoneans, let us, for once, think Sierra Leone. Let's look at each other as brothers and sisters. No matter where we find ourselves, in the workplace, if even we're in different political parties, what comes first? We are Sierra Leoneans. Think Sierra Leone. See what you can do. Don't wait for government to do something. See what you can do to complement the effort of government. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you, John Coker, Executive Director of Fambul Talk International. Now let me come to you, Success. Quickly, the Pay No Bribe campaign. Has anyone been convicted for bribery?
Well, you know, the commission investigates issues of corruption happening right across the country. Mark you, the Pay No Bribe, of course, was a campaign that was sponsored by DFID and then technical reports then provided by Kofi. But that particular support, ended, in December, and now the commission has domesticated the Pay No Bribe. But mark you, the Pay No Bribe does not, have anything relating to prosecutions. Generally, what happens is that, efforts are being made or campaigns are being raised discouraging people taking bribes across institutions, and even through the 515 line which we have at our call center. Once those complaints come in, they are collated and then taken to MDs so that as in the form of recommendations for actions to be taken. But generally on issues of corruption, once there is sufficient evidence, for you to be charged to court, of course those indictments are being made. But the Pay No Bribe is generally, take the reports and then ask MDs to act upon it.
The SEC encouraged people to bring in vital information if they know about a corrupt act. Does the SEC protect whistleblowers?
Yeah, it does. It does protect whistleblowers, but this is further being strengthened by what we've been able to capture in the Anti-Corruption Amendment Act 2019, which is before Parliament and has gone through first reading and second reading. It's been returned again to the Legislative Committee. We expect it for it to be brought back to the well at the plenary, for final debates. But yes, the Commission protects its witnesses. But going further, the Commission is saying it wants to be able to protect the witnesses more. Section 77, of the ACC Act 77 speak clearly that every public officer, working in any institution should be able to report issues of corruption. But going further, the Commission is saying that in an instance, as per what is being captured in the new amendment, that somebody wants to help the Commission with certain information, that person should be protected, and if even that person is working in an office, nobody should intimidate that person or do anything to that person. On the contrary, and at the same time, the Commission is saying that they want to be able to have a way of making applications to the court. Let's say in an instance somebody wants to testify against, in a particular corruption trial, but that person is either feels intimidated or is afraid to testify. In the new amendment which you have, the Commission is saying we want to be able to make an application to the High Court, to that particular judge sitting on that particular matter, asking that that person should be granted the free hand to be able to testify in camera and not to the onlooking of the rest of the members of the court. But this is not as of right for the ACC. It is discretionary, to the judge who will be sitting on a specific corruption matter. Once that judge finds out that, the circumstances around the applications, has reached the necessary threshold for him or her to grant such, to the ACC, then it can. So protecting witnesses is part of the ACC's work, because mark you, the ACC cannot work in isolation. ACC work with people. It works with institutions. So it's been doing that, over time. But going further, we're asking to strengthen that more.
Okay, to tell us about the establishment of the integrity clubs by the ACC.
Well, that is part of the work of the ACC, and it is ongoing. Just before the close of school, we had a conference, of integrity clubs.
What is the rationale for that?
The rationale is to be able to promote transparency and accountability at a young stage of our kids, of our children. Mark you, it is but not necessary to capture them when they are young. A lot of people have been saying over time that for us, now that are adults, that we are not going. But what about those that are coming up? If we want to be able to speak to the issues, to the heart of the issues of corruption, then we should be able to capture those coming after us at a very young age, so that they understand what it means to have integrity, what it means to live a decent life, what it means to be able to be accountable. So this is what we are doing as a commission, but that particular process is ongoing, and we have integrity clubs across schools in the Western area and also in the regions. Before the close of school, we had our conference at the St. Anthony's Hall at Syke Street, where we brought together all of our representations as a way of integrity clubs in schools, so that we can brainstorm and map the way forward, in ensuring that we do not only strengthen the integrity clubs, but be able to create the necessary impact. Because what the commission is looking at is to be able to train our young ones from that stage, so that when they grow up, they can be a role model to others coming after them. Because the issue of promoting integrity and accountability in life or in public life is one that is key, for which even the Asset Declaration sections, of which is section 119 of the Anti-Corruption Act, speaks to that, and we are also asking for an amendment to those regulations. So perhaps in subsequent programs we'll be able to talk about it more.
What message would you want to leave us with from the ACC?
Well, one, we just want to continue to solicit enlist the support of Sierra Leoneans. The commission is their own. The fight against corruption is not only a fight for the Anti-Corruption Commission of Sierra Leone. It is for everybody. I could still, remember when we had the International Anti-Corruption Day celebrations at the Ajay Crowther Amphitheatre at Afrabi College, when we, got in the anti-corruption Don Patrick Lok Otieno Lumumba, when it was time for the Commissioner Francis Benkefala to make some few statements. He said few things. He said for far too long as a country will be held bound by one common enemy, which is corruption. Okay. And now that we intensified efforts, we've drawn a line on corruption. So what we are expecting Sierra Leoneans to join us do is to thicken that line, to reject, resist, and report corruption always.
All right, thank you so very much. Success Kamara, Assistant Public Relations Officer of the Anti-Corruption Commission. We've been talking on their efforts in the fight against corruption in Sierra Leone. And many thanks also to John Kolka, Executive Director of Fambul Talk International, who has been telling us on their efforts in community dispute resolution. Well, that's how we end the show for this week. Thank you very much for watching. It's been an awesome time being with you. I am Leonardo Jawara. Do join another presenter on Monday. I'll leave you with the African proverb from Ethiopia. It says, your neighbor knows you are alive, but only you know how you are living. Do have yourself a wonderful weekend. You're with Star Television Network on Channel 21, and this is the national news with me, Sienna Wright. First, our top stories. As the government of Sierra Leone, with support from national and international stakeholders, has commenced a 3-day National Peace and Cohesion Conference at the Bintumani International Conference Hall, Aberdeen in Freetown.
The government is eager for the final communique from this event, and we expedite its consideration by Cabinet and then the Sierra Leone Parliament.
The Freetown City Council has on Monday, 20th May 2019, commenced a 20-day fraud mitigation exercise.
Yesterday we were at Poti, Bukuba and Access. Today we're at Lomé. But behind me is the Samba Gutter, and this is also going to be a part of the flood mitigation work.
For the first time, 10 juveniles from the remand center have been granted presidential pardon, according to the Prison Watch.
We want to say thank you to the government of Sierra Leone, most especially the president and his team, for hearing the voice of Prison Watch at this time around, because in our privileged discussion with the Director of Public Policy Division, he was able to bring up the names of these boys and they were granted amnesty.
And in sports, the Sierra Leone Single-Leg Amputee Association has begun its annual Inter-Regional Amputee Championship edition in the Eastern region.
Our passion for this game is for us to be able to gather